One of the most confusing JavaScript topics is this keyword and how it works in an arrow function and a normal function. So let's demystify this keyword in this video. If you are new to my channel, I talk about web development and programming in general. So consider subscribing to my channel, and with that said, let's get started with today's video. The first thing we are going to do is just console.log this. So what is this in global context? Let's have a look at it. So when we see here, we have a window object. So window object contains all the global properties, any global function, any global variable that you might declare, which is not inside of another function or class or object. It is a global, it is attached to the global object, that is the window object. In our browser it might differ in Node.js, but in our browser it is the window object that will be logged onto our console if we try to log this, as you can see here. So now let's create a class person. So I'm assuming you know what is a class and a constructor. If you don't, classes are basically blueprint for creating an object. For example, we might have a class person, and there might be actual instances of person, like we all are instances of a person or a human or person as a whole is a class. So they may have different properties, like we have name, address and contact number. Like most of us have contact numbers and address and name. So these are the properties of our class. And then we have a constructor. So a constructor method is a special method which is executed whenever we create a new object of this particular class. And our constructor method can take arguments like any other method. So it takes 3 arguments, that is the name, address and contact, and we set our name, address and contact to these arguments that we are receiving when we are creating the object. And I will show you how we create the object. And let's have another method, show person details. The reason we are having this method is because I want to show you what is the difference between arrow function and a normal function and normal anonymous function, and how this keyword differs in both those functions. So first we'll just log that this method is called, just to confirm, and then we will select our button. Inside of our markup we have only one button, so we do not have to think too much. We can use a simple query selector and select this button. And if you don't know what is a query selector and document object model, all those stuff, I have actually published a video on this topic, so you can definitely check that out. And now we can add an event listener, a click listener, that is we want to do something when we click this button. And now first we will have a normal function with function keyword, and we will log this and we will see what the value of this is. But after that I want to add another same event listener, click event listener, to the same button, but the only difference is this time I will be using a arrow function. Okay, not function keyword but arrow function. This is almost same, but there's one major difference that I will show you, and how this keyword behaves differently in both those contexts. And then we will create an object and we will call the show person details method. And now let's see what's the output in our browser. Our first log statement is console.log this, and our global this refers to our window object. And then we call the method, that is the show person details, on this object. So we create an object new using new keyword and the person or name of the class, and then we pass 3 arguments to our constructor. As you can see, we were receiving 3 arguments here, name, address and contact. So we are passing those 3 arguments here, and that's how we create a new object. And then we call this method which we have on this particular class of this object. And then the first thing we do when we call this method is we log method called, and we also register a couple of callback functions when we click the button. But the only difference between them is one uses normal function keyword and other uses es6 arrow function. So let's see what happens when we click log this. So inside using normal function keyword, as you can see here, we are logging button. So this refers to the button when we are using the normal function keyword. And what happens when we use arrow functions, or this refers to the person object or the class, the current object, because as you can see, the current object has the name property set as Jayesh, and the address set as India, and the context set as this number, random number. So as you can see here, now we have person, that is the person object, person's objects, and it has different properties, that is address, India, contact, this number, and name, its name, the name of the person. So that's the difference between arrow keyword and function keyword. Now actually this is the right behavior. I mean, this is the right behavior for a function keyword, because whenever we are calling this keyword in any context, normally it refers to the current object, current execution context, and this method, that is this anonymous function, is called when a button is clicked. Okay, so on button event, so button is basically, we are calling this on the click, so that's why it is called from inside of a button, that is on this callback event. So that's why this refers to this button, the first function keyword. But what happens when we use a arrow keyword is it actually skips this one context, and it actually refers to the class. And we can confirm this by, if we want, inside of constructor, or maybe inside of this method, let's log this. And when we see here, this is inside of this method, this is an after click, so we can see those both of them are same. This is because this is what we naturally expect it to be. So we naturally expect this keyword to refer to the properties of this current class, that is this dot name is equals to name, that is name we are receiving as arguments, and this dot name refers to the name of our class and not something else. So when we are actually registering for some events and we want to use this keyword, we want it to refer to our class and not the events, that is a button event or button or something else. We can use arrow functions, and the value of this keyword inside of arrow functions is the value of this keyword in its enclosing scope, that is the before this scope, that is inside of button, or of course if we use normal function we would have referred to the button, but what is above button, we have our class, because outside, if we outside of this event listener, outside of a button, when we log this, we get our person object, so it will refer to its enclosing, this keyword's value of its enclosing scope, that is before this event listener, this keyword was actually referring to this class, and it won't refer to the current click or the current object, that is a button. So that's how they differ in JavaScript. But mostly when we are simply using a class, so this keyword refers to the properties of the class, and whenever we use arrow functions, it does not create its own context, it just takes the context of its enclosing a scope. So that's the difference between how a function keyword and how a ES6 arrow functions work or differ from each other, and how the behavior of this keyword differs. So we have to remember that this keyword basically always prints the current context or the current object we are in, and when we are using arrow function, it just prints the parent context. You could think of it this way, it prints the parent context or enclosing context. That's all there is to this keyword. If you still have any doubts, please feel free to share them in the comment section. If you find anything wrong, tell me in the comment section, and I'll try my best to make another video, and we'll meet in my next video.